Look at this. Absolutely stunning. Mythical Sausage has claimed the first tower here on the Greatbridge, and I'm so happy with this. This makes the bridge look way more epic than it already was, and I'm so happy Sausage decided to do that. Look at that! This man's put a diamond block up in here, has spared no expense, and some emerald blocks up in there as well. Very, very cool. And this must be the banner of Sanctuary, which I don't think I've seen yet. I'm sure he's shown it in his videos, but I haven't been able to catch all of them. Sanctuary's outpost on the Greatbridge, and he's even used it for a more community-minded purpose as well. He's put a bunch of cool items in here. I think polished basalt is something that I definitely need in large supply, although I've got a decent amount of it right now, so I'm not about to take it from Mythical Sausage's place. But look at this. He's got some terracotta in here. He's got some sharpness swords. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff in here. Even a diamond helmet, although it does have Curse of Vanishing on it. But hey, there's a little bit of supplies from Sanctuary in here as well. I believe he's popped a couple of bits and pieces of wood around here. There's some mangrove and whatnot. That's very, very cool. So thank you so much, Sausage, for that. There's nothing in the barrels and crates on the outside. It's pretty typical Mythical Sausage window dressing, and that's what we love about Mythical Sausage. I appreciate that, and man, that's such a cool looking addition to the bridge. I'm looking forward to seeing what the other folks do. Nobody else has claimed a tower yet, unless they popped a sign down inside of one of these, but they don't seem to have built anything up around it, and sooner or later I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do with one of these, because there are 12 towers, so one of those is presumably mine. But I'm going to wait and see what else other people choose, and maybe I'll pick one of the towers that's closer to my empire, just so I don't have quite as far to travel. But speaking of where to travel, I have these little sections of the bridge here, which are currently kind of blank. In fact, if I drop off of this, it's just a wall of stone, and the underneath is not finished, because I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do here. The original plans for the Greatbridge had a couple of extra supporting pillars here, which I decided to remove from the design. And instead, I think we're going to have a roadway that extends this way and that way, maybe comes down a set of stairs and leads out in a path towards the sort of side entrance, I guess, of my empire, because the main gate that's going to be over here is going to take a little bit of time, and I want something to lead out in that direction in the meantime. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of work on that. We may need to bridge over this giant hole in the landscape, but I don't know, maybe we'll cover that over, maybe we'll do something else with it at some stage. But I think a road coming out from the side here, and then a kind of straightforward staircase down, and that's going to give me an opportunity to build something that I've wanted to build on a server like this for a while. But first of all, we got to make sure that the steps are in place, so I think we're going to do a bit of building here. Hey folks, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the time-lapse. And so, the Greatbridge gets an extra addition, a little extension on the side here that's going to lead into a path that will lead over towards the ruins, and obviously there's going to be another path that goes through that way, but they're both going to lead to different sections. Trust me, I have a bit of a plan. It's all in my head right now, but it'll get there. Now, we have a couple of really nice blank canvases within the boundaries of this little area. I also added a section that was kind of crumbling off the side, because most of the Greatbridge isn't all that ruined, but I kind of like the fact that there's some sections which are crumbling in like this. And Tough is such a good block for that. It's really, really good at looking like masonry that has crumbled and worn away and just left raw stone underneath and that kind of thing. So we've got a section that's fallen out there. But right here is where I want to build the next thing. And this is going to be familiar to some of you who've been watching my channel for a long time or have gone back and watched old series like Decidedly Vanilla, because you may remember that back in the day, I used to have a little setup where people could throw stuff into a fountain and get stuff back out as a reward. And people on this server tend to call me the lore man, but what I really am is an ore man. And yes, I know Fwip has all of the stones and the ores and stuff like that, but I am specifically an emerald ore guy. One of my favorite blocks in the game, I've talked about this plenty of times, I love emerald ore, and I personally think that it is absolutely useless to break emerald ore with anything other than the Silk Touch pickaxe, because if you fortune emerald ore, you just get emeralds, and you can trade emeralds from villagers for sticks. It's just not really necessary to break emerald ore down at all. And so, given that my angle this season is all about preservation, I kind of want to make sure that some of the emerald ore people mine on this server is preserved. So sticking out of this wall here, what I'm going to do is set up a little, effectively like wishing well style fountain, where people can come and throw their emerald ore in, and they will get emeralds back out. And with Fortune 3, when you break an emerald ore, you're only guaranteed to get between 1 and 4 emeralds. Basically, you get, on average, about 2.2 emeralds. It's the same with diamonds, basically exactly the same ratio. But what I want to do is give everybody who mines an emerald ore with Silk Touch the opportunity to get more than that. And my hope is that people will come to this as a little emerald ore exchange, and give their emerald ore in exchange for more emeralds than they would get with Fortune. I'm going to give everybody 3 emeralds for each emerald ore they throw in, which is more than you would get on average if you fortuned the emerald ore that you found, because there is of course a chance that you'd only get 1 emerald ore. You're not guaranteed to get 4 every single time. And I think I need to move this over 1 block. It's not quite centered on this section of wall, and I would like it to be centered. We'll do a little bit of texturing around the outside here as well, just to make sure it's not all mossy stone brick, although I like the fact that it's got a lot of moss around, because of course this is going to be a working fountain. But we're going to take advantage of one of the properties of mud, which I've acquired a lot of from a distant mangrove swamp, not the Evermore but a different one, just so I can fill in what's underneath the pillars of the Greatbridge. We've actually been working on bits and pieces of those, and some of them now go all the way down into the lake bed, which I'm very happy about. I'm going to be continuing those a little later. But inside of this fountain, roughly in the center here, we're going to have one piece of mud, and mud is one of those blocks that looks solid but isn't entirely solid. You sink down into it a little bit when you step on a block of mud, and that means a hopper can draw items through the block of mud. If we toss them onto the top there, a hopper will actually be able to pick up items resting on top of that block without needing a hopper minecart, which means we can set up an item filter underneath there that will accept emerald ore that is thrown in. And concealed on the inside of here, we're going to set up a redstone item filter, which once we've cleared out some of the mobs in here, I need to put some more frog lights in here to light the place up. But there's going to be an item filter behind here just to make sure nobody throws in some random junk, and a filter circuit that's going to detect when an emerald ore comes through and is going to spit out 3 emeralds. In fact, you know what? I'm going to keep adjusting the dimensions of this. Let's bring this 1 block further out, because at the back here, we're going to have a face, and the face is going to be the thing that spits out the emerald ore, kind of implying that there is a little bit of a story behind this. Maybe it's some kind of emerald god that people used to worship. Maybe it's just a neat presentational touch for this fountain. But either way, I like the idea of having a face on the outside of this, and it's how I built it originally when I designed this thing a few years ago. So underneath here, we're going to make a really basic item filter circuit. We're not even going to worry too much about stuff like overflow protection, because this is just going to be a single circuit. There's not going to be 2 side by side or anything. It's just going to be the one. The comparator's just going to have 2 redstone dust exhaust coming out of it. The redstone torch that's disabling the hopper is actually going to go directly beneath the hopper right here, and then a repeater is going to be facing into there. So a very, very simple item filter circuit. We're going to have a few blocks in here. I think we need something like 21 blocks in here. So we're just going to put some junk items in there. We got 21 blocks of granite. That's going to work out for us. And if we put more emerald ore in here, that's all going to start filtering down until... No. Hello. That was a narrowly avoided disaster. That was basically all the emerald ore I owned, so I'm quite glad that that didn't end up exploding. There's a few of them around, though. Anyway, once that catastrophe has been averted, 7 of the emerald ore should have gone through the system. 1 will be left in this hopper, and the remaining 6 are in the chest, which means there's just 1 item left here in the original filter. And that's underneath this block of mud, which means, like I said, if we throw the emerald ore on top of there, it's going to get pulled through the hopper, into the hopper below, and then out into the chest. But then what we want to have is a dispenser right about here, which is going to be the thing's mouth. It's going to be behind a block, but of course, the block isn't going to prevent the emeralds from being spat through. If it's within that close enough proximity, the emeralds are just going to fall out of this statue into the center of the fountain, where they're not going to fall into the item filter again, and people are going to be able to wade through the fountain to pick up their emeralds. So let's say this is the magic emerald block, that little chips are going to come off in the form of regular emeralds, and that's what's going to provide an infinite supply of emeralds, seemingly, to anybody who wants to donate their emerald ore right here. To wire up this dispenser, we're going to have some slabs feeding the redstone wire upwards from here, just to make sure that it doesn't cut off the rest of the filter circuit. We're going to have that light up a redstone lamp. The redstone lamp is going to be detected by an observer, which is going to fire another redstone lamp, and a second observer is going to be wired straight into the dispenser, detecting how many times this lamp flashes on and off, and spitting out emeralds accordingly. So now listen out for the clicks this dispenser makes when I throw an emerald ore onto that block of mud. There you go, it clicks 3 times, because the lamp inside flashes on and off. The observer there translates that into 2 pulses, 1 on, 1 off, and then that redstone lamp will flash on and off a couple of times. That observer is only fast enough to detect 3 of those pulses, therefore the dispenser ticks 3 times. And what that means is the person throwing their emerald ore onto this mud block ends up getting 3 emeralds spat out of the fountain. Having this emerald block here means that people can't just reach in and grab the emeralds out of the dispenser. We're going by the honor system here, of course, so people aren't going to just break through the wall and grab all of these emeralds. I can also refill this really easily, because once again, all I need to do is go to a nearby village and trade a bunch of sticks for emeralds, and then people will be able to get emeralds galore out of this thing. So that's the redstone part done. Now all that remains is to decorate it. There we go, a few waxed copper blocks in there. I'm just going to wax the 2 inside the eyes there as well, just so those don't end up aging, and that's looking pretty good. It kind of looks like he's in a hair metal band from the 80s or something. Anyway, let's throw some water in here. We're going to need 3 water sources, since obviously it'll spread out to the sides if we just put one at the front here, but we'll have 1 there and 1 there, and that should now direct anything that is thrown into the fountain over that block there, except these 2, which kind of fling out towards the sides. But literally any block you throw this on, it'll sort of redirect itself over the mud block there, which will only accept emerald ore now. So if I throw down my ender chest again to grab the remaining emerald ore I had, but now there is a bit of a problem, because the water level is actually too high for the emerald ore to go through the mud block, which is something I hadn't previously considered, but that is a bit of a problem. The water is too high up. I wonder if maybe we can swap some of these blocks out for stairs, waterlog those, and then maybe the water level will dip low enough. Let's see if this goes low enough now. Still not quite. Still not quite. Even though, oh, wait a second, the item bobs up and down as though it's waiting to consider whether the emerald ore is worthy or not. Let's give that one more quick try. Yeah, you know what, that's kind of okay. I might end up rejigging some of this later. When I designed this originally, I actually had the hopper on the surface, but I decided I wanted the mud to be there so that it wasn't really obvious what was in the item filter, so that it still felt like it had a bit more mystery to it. I think we're going to have to compromise the design slightly here, but yeah, we can pull the whole thing out 1 block and maybe lower the water level even further. You know what, I've redesigned it, and I don't really like the proportions. Even though we've now got the water level down to the point where if I throw an emerald ore in, it disappears under the mud instantly, I still kind of prefer it being a little bit smaller and more discreet. And I think having it hover over that mud block for a second or 2 will also prevent people from just spamming emerald ore, because if they do that, they're only going to get a couple of emeralds out of it, because the system is going to drain those other emerald ores out, and they're only going to get like a handful of emeralds instead of one per ore. So I think maybe that'll be a good way of making sure people don't spam their way through this. We do, after all, want to make sure people get their money's worth, and who knows, maybe we'll put some other items in there in future. Maybe a diamond will pop out of this thing every once in a while. I kind of like that idea, but yeah, I do think we need to shrink this pool back down again, because it just looks a little bit weirdly proportioned right now. Okay, at this point I'm pretty much locked in with the design. I think it's good. I think it's just going to be enough time for them to contemplate whether or not they're throwing the right block in, and then it's going to spit out 3 emeralds. I think that's working out pretty well, and I'm probably going to build a sort of plaza around the outside of this, something that's just tucked into this arm of the Greatbridge here, so that people will know this is here, and it'll be nice and easy for them to come in for a landing if they're using Elytra and find a spot to throw their emerald ore into the fountain. So I have let everybody know on the server that the Emerald Exchange is now up and running, and I should probably leave them some instructions about throwing in the ore blocks one at a time for the best results. But I also want to start one for Deep Slate Emerald, because that, of course, is the rarest block in the game, and goodness only knows it would be a tragedy if anybody happened to fortune some Deep Slate Emerald ore, or much worse, break it with a stone pickaxe. So I think what we're going to do down here, almost as though it's like a secret of the Greatbridge, is do the Dark Emerald Ore Shrine down here, where there's going to be one for Deep Slate Emerald. And that one will contain some very different prizes. I'm thinking, even if we were going to throw the occasional diamond into here, I'm thinking diamond blocks, or maybe diamond ore in exchange, needs to go in here. We need to have, you know, potentially coordinates to secret locations where I'll have stashed some buried treasure, or maybe, you know, some valuable other stuff that people might be interested in having, and maybe we'll just dish out one of those prizes at a time, but in exchange for Deep Slate Emerald ore, that's got to be worth it, right? So I think we're going to build one of those down there. The problem is, to make the item filter the same way I've made it for this one, I need to get hold of a Deep Slate Emerald ore myself, and I have not yet been in a position to find one of those. I've been digging in a few mountain biomes. It's where I have that strip mine that I got all of the stone for the Greatbridge from, but I don't think I saw any Deep Slate Emerald ore down there. I barely found that much emerald ore down there, to be honest with you, so yeah, we might have to wait a little bit longer, or I might have to check in on anyone else on the server and see if they're willing to part with any Deep Slate Emerald ore that they may have found. In the meantime, I have done a couple more of the pillars over here on the Greatbridge. We're working on this one, which I think is the 6th one of 12. It's a long process, so I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. That's just going to be something I do on streams and stuff for the next little while. But part of that has required gathering a whole lot of mud, and I've been stripping that out of a mangrove biome that's like well away in the distance. It's, you know, a few thousand blocks away, but I don't know if I want to be doing that permanently, and especially since I'll be taking down and terraforming so much of the landscape around here, gathering up all of the blocks of dirt as we carve away some of this hillside to make room for the grand road that's going to come into this capital city I'm building. I want to make sure that I can convert some of that dirt into mud, and I have a feeling that that even has the potential to pitch to some other folks here on the server who might be lacking certain types of resources. Also, hello. This has the telltale signs of somebody coming through here and taking some calcite from these mountains block by block. We did see Joel coming on through here a little while ago, but it wasn't evident that he was taking the calcite at the time, so if you know who this is, maybe let me know. But beyond just the regular mud, I am also going to want a bunch of packed mud for mud bricks and stuff like that so that we can build with those. So I think our next port of call is going to have to be a mud factory. So we have a pretty successful mud machine set up here. Once again, done this in the survival guide, so I won't show you the step-by-step process here, but we have a row of pistons feeding this out behind us as we generate it, and even doubling back. So we actually have a different piston setup here that's just going to wrap things around and push them out over here. And I'm wondering if we can also manage to fit a row of pistons down here that will continue it up onto the next level. And at that point, we could have this thing folding back on itself. The only problem right now is the input line that we have for the blocks here as they get converted. Obviously, the power from this redstone dust through the mud block is activating that piston, but we could pretty much just change that by having the power source back here and a repeater feeding into the block there. Observer facing into it that way, another redstone line coming down here. These probably all have to be target blocks, but I think that will work. no, this one's still getting powered from the side, though. I'm also getting the sense that pushing stuff up from underneath here is probably going to block the piston feed tape as it comes through, so that's not ideal either. And the alternative is going to be to have sticky pistons facing downwards on top of this, pulling the blocks up, but I think at that point that limits how high we can go with this cube that we're creating, so to be honest, I think I'm probably going to leave it at 2 lines. With the right setup, we could have all of this forming a massive cube of mud, but to be honest, I think 2 layers is going to be enough. I'm fine just monitoring it and mining it all out once it gets to a certain point. I also don't want this thing to get too big because I want to design a build around it. This is obviously going to be part of this area, therefore it needs to have some ruins constructed around it. And it's a good thing I have all of this mud now because part of me really wants to create a build that has more packed mud in it. We got about 3 stacks out of that overall, so that's really not too bad. And I should be able to get a few stacks of wheat out of the wheat field here, but I might need a long-term solution for this too. So with this as our foundation, let's see what we can manage. And after a little bit of work, this is what we've ended up with. Now, I do want to do a little bit more work around here to give it more structure, but the foundation is there, and that's just going to make it easier for me to farm some mud. All I need to do is hop up in here, start placing the dirt blocks against this piston, and they should start converting into mud over here. And we've got a nice flat floor in here so that I can take my shovel and just burn through all of the mud, collecting it all up as I go. Maybe we'll get some allays at some point to help me collect the mud a little bit faster. But for now, I didn't want to make the floor anything too complex. I'm trying to at least give the impression that there is mud that's been left on the floor. It's been scraped across the floor and has left some residue here, but the majority of it is just good, solid stone. And I didn't want to make this look too ruined on account of, you know, having to come back and collect it and not wanting stuff to fall through the gaps anywhere. So I think I'll convert the rest of the dirt I've got on me, and then I think that's probably where we'll call it for this episode, because I've got a bunch of other projects I want to get to on the server, but they're not anything I can show you folks just yet. They're actually kind of secret things which hopefully will end up being revealed through other people's videos. And it's actually been a pretty quiet week here on Empires because a few people have been away at different events. TwitchCon has been happening, and I know some of the folks were involved in that. MCC was also this weekend, and even God himself is online right now but AFK. So it's been a little bit quiet in terms of folks I can collab with, but hopefully we'll see a few more of them in the next episode. But for now, that's where we'll wrap things up for this episode. So thank you so much for watching Empires SMP. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care. Bye for now.